Gregory said, this idea that Joe Biden picking a woman of color is a safe choice, I wholeheartely disagree. If you know anything about racism, you know anything about sexism, and you've been on the other end of those very powerful forces in American history, and certainly in American political history, then we know that this isn't a safe choice. I mean, if you look around, how many black women CEOs are there? How many black women governors are there? None. How many black women senators have there been? Two. How many black women bosses have any of us had, really? So this idea that this is safe and conventional is just not true.
Nia Malika Henderson on the vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris. That is the news of this day on this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Tuesday, August the 11th, 2020. In this edition of The Politicrat, Senator Kamala Harris, the vice presidential pick of Joe Biden, a historic moment in American politics. Next. Welcome back. Well, this has been the day that many of us have been waiting for. The first black woman to be selected as Vice President of the United States in a major political party. That means everything to many of us, myself included. Today, Joe Biden was instrumental in making history when he selected Kamala Harris, who became the first black woman ever to be the pick for vice president of a major party here in the United States of America. And I think that it was an excellent choice. Senator Kamala Harris, who is from this state of California. She is from Oakland, California originally, just across the bridge here from San Francisco. And this was an historic day. It was an emotional day. Look, I actually cried, I must confess, when this really sunk in that Kamala Harris was going to be the pick and was the pick. Because this is a moment that we have not seen in this country, and this is a moment that black women everywhere have more than earned. I mean, this is the very, very least of all of the blood, the sweat, the tears, the toil that black women all across the United States of America, throughout epochs of history, the foundation of this nation is black women. In the political realm, it is black women. In the moral realm, it is black women. In the realm of conscience, it is black women. And in the Democratic Party, it is most certainly black women. It's not so much that black women have saved America. It is that black women have led the way. And in a great many instances, black women have never really truly received their due for everything that they have done to make this nation a better place in which to live. And so this was a special day of pride for me personally as a black man, but certainly for black women, it had to be even sweeter and more special. And for me personally, I felt that Kamala Harris should really take this moment and this day and savor it. And so for her personally, I am very happy and very proud. I met Kamala Harris last year here in San Francisco, the city in which she was the district attorney. It was a controversial run, to say the least, as was some of her tenure as Attorney General of this state. Yes, there are some things about Kamala Harris's record that I am not happy with. And yes, there is no such thing as a perfect candidate or a perfect vice presidential pick. All of us has baggage. And while all of us are not running to be president or be part of the presidential ticket as the vice president, we all know that we cannot make the perfect the enemy of the good. So personally, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Kamala Harris on becoming the first black woman to be vice presidential pick for a major political party in this country. That means everything. And as I said, I met Kamala Harris last year when she was running for president herself here in San Francisco, and got a picture taken with her, which I have posted on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL. Harris dropped out of the presidential race at the end of last year, just 3 months after I got to meet her. The money was just drying up for her, and she really had not made any inroads, and she never managed to compete in a primary. And so, sadly, she had to bow out. She had challenged Joe Biden on the stage at the debates last year and certainly got his attention with a very strong attack against him, one that was quite frankly justified, talking about his 1970s support and 1960s support, but 1970s support of anti-busing, literally in California. And when she turned to him and said, "That little girl was me that you stood against," and she turned to Joe Biden and said that to him, that had a real resonance to it. Now, insiders say that he was hurt by that, but so what? I'm hurt by the fact that he supported those anti-busing measures against black kids going to school. And I know I'm not the only one. But certainly, Kamala Harris made an impression on Joe Biden. Kamala Harris had been good friends with Beau Biden, the now late son of Joe Biden, who had a very close relationship with his son. And that certainly was a key factor as well for Joe Biden, I'm sure, in picking Kamala Harris. Senator Harris will be a very good vice president only if and only if you turn up at the polls or vote early or vote by mail ASAP. Harris is a fighter. Harris is a warrior. Harris is somebody who has a good deal of experience. She, of course, is in the U.S. Senate, as I've mentioned. She asks the tough questions. She's taken a hit on the campaign trail, particularly at the debates during last year, and when she had to face off against Tulsi Gabbard, and Gabbard really hit her on some things with her record as an attorney, as the Attorney General, as the San Francisco District Attorney, when, of course, talking about sentencing for drug offenses and marijuana and situations with the 3 strikes, and the idea that truant kids would have their black mothers, black kids who went truant would have their black mothers put in prison. That rumor has still abounded about Harris during her time as a district attorney in San Francisco. I think in the long run made sense, and I got this one wrong. I had been on here guaranteeing Susan Rice that she would be the pick. But in the end, it was about being battle tested on the stage as well as the experience. And for all the experience that Susan Rice had as the ambassador in the UN under President Barack Obama, while working alongside Vice President Joe Biden in that same administration, for all the experience that Susan Rice had as the National Security Advisor under President Obama as well. She did not have the battle-tested public campaigning experience, and that was going to be key, obviously, for Joe Biden. She simply was untested there, and I think what you got here with Kamala Harris from the point of view of a Biden-Harris ticket now is someone who brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm and can also help offset that kind of attack that you're going to get from Trump, which is what you already are getting, that Sleepy Joe line. And there was a time that Joe Biden was more energetic, but of course he's now 77 years old, and Donald Trump is not exactly that much younger at 74. And he certainly is not somebody who is the pillar or picture of energy. But what you have with Kamala Harris here now, the senator out of California, is somebody who shows you a glimpse of the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but a future of the United States of America and what it will be looking like in these next 10, not just 4 years, but 10, 20, 30 years. That's what you really have here. Biden said he wanted to build a bridge to the future, and certainly he has absolutely put his money where his mouth is in picking Senator Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is going to be a formidable opponent for Mike Pence at the one vice presidential debate that they do have. She is going to be the X factor here and the intangible, because what will now happen is that you will have a lot of black people who will gravitate toward this ticket now with some enthusiasm. And I think that's what this pick was also about for Joe Biden, a pick that would create additional enthusiasm about his campaign. And enthusiasm, really, when you look at it, speaking of enthusiasm, when you look at the enthusiasm, you could do not much better at all than have someone who is charismatic and engaging, and someone who is in their mid-50s and with that kind of youth. And having someone in the mid-50s is a perfect thing, because Kamala Harris at 55, I believe is her age, is young. That's a young age. And the idea that she could be president before she turns 60 is really a good thing. Particularly when Joe Biden, should he become president, and I think he will be 77 years old. He is 77. He will be the oldest person to be elected to that office in this country's history. So I am thrilled by the pick. Now look, I have some issues with Harris, as I've said. I did initially support her for president when she announced last year, at the beginning of last year, and was one of the earliest to announce. I think she may have been the first or second. I think Elizabeth Warren and then Kamala Harris were the first two to announce. And I'm thrilled that Harris was the pick, although, of course, I would have preferred Rice. But again, with my objections about some of the things that Kamala Harris has done policy-wise on the criminal justice front notwithstanding, I think that this is an important pick for the Democratic Party. I think it's an important pick for the United States of America. I think it's a time for us to celebrate personally this achievement for Kamala Harris, but I also think it's a time to think about her policies, what she's done, her time in the Senate that, of course, she is involved in. Of course, she still is in the Senate right now, and also what we can expect from this ticket when they govern, because Joe Biden is clearly a centrist. And Senator Kamala Harris is not a progressive. The notion that she's a progressive is just not true. She's just not. She leans more toward the centrist left, center-left position. And if anything, I'd call her, based on her overall record, I'd call her a centrist as well. So ideologically, she is not that far away from Joe Biden. I remember when she was campaigning, she backtracked, I think, on a couple of things regarding either student loans and Medicare for all. She backtracked off of that a little bit. And that definitely caused me to switch my allegiance eventually to Elizabeth Warren. Then she backtracked a little bit off some of the things that she said. And then I switched to Bernie Sanders by the end of last year, or rather into the beginning of this year. But I do think that Kamala Harris will provide a jolt of energy. She will obviously engage black women. And some black women do have some issues with Kamala Harris too. But as you may well know, there were many black women who wrote to various newspapers and publications about the importance and the need for Joe Biden to pick a black woman for his vice presidential pick. And obviously Joe Biden listened to them. There was an open letter as recently as yesterday where there were at least 100 black men of prominence in this country, celebrities and politicos, who were stressing to Joe Biden to pick a black woman. And I was someone who, in the last few weeks, also has been on this podcast saying the same, and also on social media at the Popcorn REEL on Twitter, saying the very same. And particularly the last day or two when it was reported that Governor Gretchen Whitmer was being looked at and had met with Biden as recently as late last week. And all of a sudden your head's turning and saying, wait a minute, what's going on? What's the motive for this news right now? Does that mean that he's leaning Whitmer, or is this just something in the media that's being put out there? And obviously it was just something in the media that was just reported, not meant to cause consternation. Although I can tell you there were so many people yesterday that were worried about this, because had Joe Biden picked Governor Whitmer, there would have been an inquest. I mean, there would have been a massive inquest amongst a lot of people, particularly black women and black men. I would have been all over that. You cannot pick a governor who's not even finished her first term yet, barely through the first 2 years of her first term. You cannot pick. In fact, not even through the first two. She was elected in 2018. She's not served 2 full years yet. You cannot pick a governor who has served a year and a half and expect that there's going to be this grade level enthusiasm for her. And not to mention all the kinds of vitriol that she received earlier this year. I mean, those Nazis and those Confederate flags and the Nazis who were there and the militia and these other white racists who were there. Oh my goodness. The kinds of stuff they said and did to threaten Whitmer's life and to do all these things to threaten her life in the first place. It would have been a really foolhardy pick, quite frankly. And it would have been a divisive pick, because Whitmer has shown quite a bit of disregard for black people in Flint, Michigan and other areas. And she was not popular with them. So you don't want that to happen, particularly in the state of Michigan, where a state is going to be coveted again this time around. So as far as I'm concerned, I think this was a sensible choice by Joe Biden. You heard Nia Malika Henderson at the top of this episode on CNN, rightly so, saying, look, this is not a safe pick. This is not a conventional pick. It's a wise choice by Joe Biden, but it's far from safe and conventional. And as you heard her say to, I guess it was Anderson Cooper, how many black bosses have we ever had? Have any of us had? How many black CEOs are there? How many black senators? Only 2. How many black governors? None. I mean, there's nothing safe or conventional about picking Kamala Harris, who is a black woman, who also has South Asian background as well. But nonetheless, the point is that there's nothing safe about that in America, picking a black woman for vice president. That is not safe or conventional. And this was in response to something that David Gregory said, oh, this is a safe conventional pick. Well, as Nia Malika Henderson said, given the legacy of racism and sexism in this country, and as you heard in that clip, she said, if you know anything at all about sexism, if you know anything at all about racism, which David Gregory as a white man has absolutely no idea of or experience of, then you will know that this is nothing if not a bold pick, and it's nothing but nothing but an unconventional pick, given the racism in this country. I mean, Joe Biden did buck the trend. He absolutely did. He could have gone with Whitmer, and there would have been a number of people who probably would have had no problem with that. I would not have been one of them, however. So I think Nia Malika Henderson got that absolutely right in her analysis today of what truly is an historical pick. I think right now, Shirley Chisholm, whom Senator Kamala Harris modeled her campaign slogan for the people from, must be proud right now.
We have a president who is petty. He's petty. But also, there's something about Donald Trump that is just the antithesis of what we want as an American leader and as our president, which is we want a president who has a generosity of spirit. There's nothing about Donald Trump that is generous. He's generous to himself, but he has no generosity toward an icon, a hero who has been described as a saint, John Lewis, or the American people, quite frankly, when you look at his policies. And that's why I do believe he's going to be defeated in November. And I believe that he is just becoming more and more petty as we get closer to an election, the outcome of which will be that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. And so this is what we have. And at this moment, when we have had over 150,000 people in our country who have died in the last few months, we have millions of people who are out of work. As the estimate, as many as 30 million people who are drawing unemployment because they are either unemployed or underemployed. And instead, we have someone who is so self-involved instead of someone who is lifting up the spirit of the American people. I think great job, Jonathan, on the interview, and it is a further, yet another example of the nature of the current president of the United States, and it is a nature that does not reflect what we I think as a country know is actually an example of strength. It actually shows that he's quite weak.
Senator Kamala Harris, on August the 4th of this year, just a week ago, actually, exactly a week ago today, on MSNBC, talking about Donald Trump and how weak he really is, and that he will be defeated this November. And I think that she's absolutely right. We have to get out and vote, though. I think that this particular pick now re-energizes the Joe Biden campaign. Not that it lacked that much energy. I mean, obviously, Joe Biden has not really had to be very energetic, not only because of the coronavirus pandemic, but also because Donald Trump is doing all the work, really, for Biden's campaign. I mean, Donald Trump is a train wreck, and he is a self-imposed train wreck. So this is an absolute gift that keeps on giving, albeit in a very nightmarish way for the country. As far as Joe Biden's campaign is concerned, Donald Trump is making the ads and making the attacks very, very easy for Joe Biden, because, my goodness me, it's one calamity and disaster and violation of the law and shredding of the Constitution after another with Donald Trump. So Kamala Harris, the senator out of California, the junior senator out of California, is your vice presidential pick for the Democrats. Joe Biden picked her today. She and Joe Biden will appear together in Wilmington, Delaware. That's tomorrow, on Wednesday, August the 12th. August has been somewhat an historical event, a historical day, and I talked about this in the forum I did last week for the film I Am Not Your Negro. August is an historic month in this country's history. James Baldwin born this month, Barack Obama born this month. The Voting Rights Act signed in this month of August. Emmett Till tortured in this month of August. Women's suffrage movement got the right to vote 100 years ago this month. You had the March on Washington this month in August. You had so many other things going on in the United States in the month of August, a very historic month. Also a month where, if I'm not mistaken, Barack Obama was formally nominated as the first African-American presidential candidate for the Democrats. I think that formally happened in the month of August, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, it did. During the convention in August, he had enough delegates to get the nomination in, I believe it was June or July, perhaps, but it was only until August that it became official, to the best of my recollection, going back, 12 years? So August is a significant month, and here we are again in the month of August, and a significant moment in the nation's history as Kamala Harris becomes the first black female vice presidential pick for a major political party here in the United States. That is something to celebrate. Now, certainly we can talk about some of the policy issues, some of the things that give pause, and there are things that some progressives like myself do give some pause to. Certainly regarding law enforcement and situations with her time at the San Francisco District Attorney's Office and her time at the Attorney General position, as she was the Attorney General of California, the failure to prosecute Steve Mnuchin, the foreclosure king of California, who's now gone on to become the U.S. Treasury Secretary, is one of the big sticking points I have with Kamala Harris's tenure as the Attorney General of this state. Not to mention what I talked about earlier as the San Francisco District Attorney, her record with marijuana offenders and what she did and how strong the sentencing was and how tough she was is another thing, and particularly on black people who have these offenses on them, and on truancy, another sticking point. So those will be concerns, but I do think that despite those very strong concerns, ones that are compelling because of her record, I don't think that it's going to, given the seriousness of the moment and given the fact that there's Donald Trump on the other side of this, I do not think that those issues for Kamala Harris are going to sink Joe Biden or the Biden-Harris ticket. Trump will bring those up, but my goodness me, there's so much to bring up about Donald Trump in these affairs and far more that would be more than a counter to anything that Donald Trump brings up. And so far what Donald Trump brings up is hatred, because that's what he's full of, as well as being full of crap, because he constantly lies. So what you have is a ticket now that is seizing a moment. They will be together in Wilmington. That's not going to be a remote event. That's going to be the two of them together, which makes sense. And I don't know how much media will be allowed, but I'm sure there will be some. They will have some remarks to make tomorrow in Wilmington, Delaware. I don't know what the time for that's going to be yet, at least as of this recording, but it will be tomorrow. You'll finally see the two of them together for the first time, by the way, I think since March of this year, when Kamala Harris had endorsed Joe Biden. So we will see what happens tomorrow. So much to talk about that I could go on forever, but this was really the moment that people were waiting for. Black women in particular were waiting for. A lot of us, I certainly was waiting for. A lot of us out here were absolutely waiting for it. And even though I didn't get to see Susan Rice get this position, and some people have problems with Susan Rice foreign policy-wise, and they're certainly a very legitimate concerns about Libya and her approaches there on the foreign policy basis, that was not going to be something that was going to be a factor here. I mean, Joe Biden voted for the Iraq war, certainly something that is a problem in my eyes, but is not going to be a factor in this election in 2020. I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. Donald Trump will have weak attacks. He's already started in on Kamala Harris with some racist and sexist attacks. And he will face the wrath of the American public. And I think now, again, this ticket gives the American public some spice, some enthusiasm, and some activity. People now are going to be working for Biden and volunteering for Biden and voting for Biden and registering to vote for Biden. And right now, given the time that we are in a COVID-19 world, the imperative of asking for your ballot, demanding your early vote ballot so that you can fill it out and put it in the mail is imperative. And not only that, instead of having to mail it back, you should go to your local, and I mean your local, county board of elections, and make sure that you indeed do go there and demand your ballot, fill it out, and then hand it right back to them, either right there and then, or take it back home, fill it out, and go right back, whether it's that day or the very next day, first thing, and drop it off with them personally. That's how you do it. That's how you early vote. That's how you beat all the crowds. That's how you make sure that your vote is in early. Because I think a lot of this election will come down to banking early votes. And there are going to be states that are going to be overwhelmed because of Louis DeJoy's, quite frankly, unconstitutional and illegal behavior as the Postmaster General. But I do think that people, if they are smart, and they are in this country, will be able to do an end run around the shenanigans of Louis DeJoy. But today is not the day to be talking about Louis DeJoy or even Donald Trump or anybody like that. Today is the day to be talking about Senator Kamala Harris, who makes history as the first black woman, and by the way, first South Asian woman as well, come to add, to be picked for vice president of any major political party in the United States of America. So I just want to say congratulations, Senator Harris, and well done on a personal level. The work is just about to start, and that has to be done by all of us who want to see an end to Donald Trump in the White House and to Trumpism, something that has infected this country like a Trump virus. Today is Senator Kamala Harris's day. Congratulations, Senator. Thank you very much indeed for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.